Now I'd like to introduce our amazing host today, Dr. John Whalen, Ph.D. Welcome, John.
Thank you. Yes, just John is A-OK. Well, thank you so much, everyone. I'm delighted to have you all here. It looks like we've got a great group, and the whole point is to be very much interactive. So here, let me try and share a screen with you as well, and I'll going to share even more in a sec. So let's see, I'll send a request to share my screen, and wonderful news, it's been approved. Okay, good. So I think I've got this here, and sorry, I'm just going to get all of you in the right orientation so I can see everyone. Cool. Um, and I really appreciate this time. So here, let me just go ahead and get rolling. What I'd love to do is tell you a little bit about kind of where I've come from and why I've been doing all this. Excuse me, and really give you some hands-on things we can try. And just know that this is such a new thing, this notion of synthetic users or agents and all this kind of stuff. So we're all learning together, and I think we're all trying to find where this is appropriate. So I'd love for you to just learn a little more, try it yourself, and make the right decisions for you. So definitely not coming up with a specific, you know, vantage point. I can tell you where I am, but I just wanted to see, actually, to start out, maybe you can all just grab the chat and you can just do a 1 through 4 here. What do you think about synthetic users right now? So I've got a, wow, what is it? Sounds creepy to regularly use these things. Okay, Martha, welcome. Let's see. Christine too, Brad, okay. Got lots of ones. Okay, totally fair. When I first heard it, it sounded like nails ridiculous and nails on a chalkboard to me, and now I can say it with a straight face. So I completely understand all my partners here in crime with one. And oh, good. Got a Angela, you're on the fence here. You tried it. Okay, good. Um, Actually, those of you who did a 3 or a 4, what tools are you using right now? Very cool. Okay, great. Yeah, we'll actually try a little bit interesting. We've got an in-house tool. Very nice. And I'll show you a little bit of synthetic users and a little bit of a tool called Vurvey today as well. Um, Evidenza, I don't know. I'm so glad you shared that. I didn't know about that one, so I'll check it out. See, it's exactly that. There's so many things out there and it's changing so rapidly. Okay, cool. Um, well, please do keep up with the chat, and I'm happy to have questions keep popping up, and we'll address them and so on. So let me. What I did is I did a talk actually at UXLX in Lisbon. It was wonderful to go there, and about 2 minutes before the talk, I chat GPT'd myself, and I was like, oh, this wasn't bad. So I put it up on stage. So yes, I'm John, and I've had brilliant experience since about 2011. And yes, I have a cognitive science PhD, and I did write that book, Designed for How People Think. And what else? Yes, I've been around the block apparently. And yeah, I guess I wanted to tell you how I got to this. Says I run the cohort course AI for customer research, which is true. And also I've got a AI for UX kind of set of interviews that I've been doing as well. Um, and so I thought this was a reasonable way to get started, just to give you a feel. And um, also, we're going to be talking about this notion of synthetic users. And so I just wanted to remind myself to say that one of the things I did, so I think it's actually brief story time. So not last Halloween, but the Halloween before that, right about that time. I saw a talk by a group called boardofinnovation.com, and they're great. They're really interesting, and they sort of focus on consumer packaged goods. And so if you want the next Pepsi drink, they're a great group to hire, right? Okay. So they were talking about, yeah, what we were doing was we had like a synthetic ideator, and they were coming up with all these ideas, and then we had these synthetic users, and they were responding to it like 1,000 times, and we saw what bubbled up that was popular. And then we interviewed people with AI moderation over 6 languages over the weekend. I think we did 300. And by that point, I was like, what? I don't even know what a synthetic ideator is. What are you talking about? And so I was sort of honestly a little panicked that I had no idea what these things were. So I was like, I have to learn more, and I'm probably not the only person who has to learn more. So actually, just so you know, I have this available for you, for really anyone. We've done a series of interviews with founders of various tools. And so, for example, Coco is a really interesting tool for QoQo, for creating synthetic users right in like Figma, FigJam, Miro. Um, but anyway, we've been learning what is possible with AI. We've also been doing really, so we've interviewed 35, I guess really a bit more, but they aren't public yet. Um, and we've really studied a bunch more tools between me and my team. And we also did our sort of what we call our AI versus human researchers stuff, which is on our brilliant blog. And the sort of quick ending here is that we did, I did the old 2022 version of a human interviewing a human, imagine that. And then we did various versions of all the way to fully synthetic. And one of the other ones we did was having one of our lead researchers um, get AI to moderate interviews with people and use every sort of tool at their disposal. And the moral of the story is that that got about 85% of what we did our very best at. And we're like, wow, we have to take this seriously. We were all set to hate it. And so I just wanted to say that, we've tried to do some of the research on this and try to get a feel for it. So anyway, I just wanted to let you know this is all around here. So cool. Um, and so I just think that in general, the things that I'd really love you to keep learning in AI land are these. And I think there's actually a lot you can still learn in prompt engineering. And now they have a variant context engineering, but it's really just giving it the background. And obviously, we'll focus on synthetic users today. Cool. So here's what I'd love to oh, what was the tool we used? Okay, Sean asked. And in that particular case, we had a couple of varieties, but we were using, there's one called, uh, oh gosh, of course, I'm blanking on that name. So we used Listen Labs, we used Outset, and we used the one that will come to me in a minute is the answer, Sean. Um, so I'll get there for you. So I really just wanted to give you a sense of what synthetic users are like, and why you might even want to take these things seriously as a potential tool. I just wanted to make sure you all can figure out a way to ramp this up and give it a try, just with everyone has access to the prompting tools now and LLMs. So we'll do that, and I'll just show you a couple of the specialized tools as well along the way. Um, so cool. And yeah, so we'll actually be using in our talk today, syntheticulsers.com. And so they were one of our very first interviews. Kwame was the CEO there, and that's actually on that YouTube channel. Um, yeah, so Anthony, you can just look up a few chats. Ellen's got the link right there. Um, cool. So let me just give you a little, what I think of here. And this isn't a definitive guide, but a way to get us sort of started in thinking about these things. Um, and so I might say that these are, some sort of representation of a target audience that essentially you can interview and can provide feedback on concepts. So notice I didn't say anything like can create data or have facts or, I no longer need to test humans, right? So I guess I think of this as inspiration or a way to broaden my thinking or a way to anticipate what I might get from my humans. And so right now, I think I tread lightly, but I wanted you to know this. And so we'll actually look at the first two, synthetic users and Vurvey. I wanted to say another group that's really sophisticated in this is called Yabble. They're again sort of a little more focused on the consumer, like CPG kind of side of the world, but they have a really strong things there too. Um, so anyway, that's what I'm thinking. If any of you are thinking something else, feel free to challenge it, question, and so on. And I wanted to say that, these things are just well established and everyone loves them. And so, well, maybe not exactly. So it's something that, takes some time to soak in. And I think that as a researcher, I want to be open enough to evaluate these things, and then make a call from there. And so Erica's awesome. I know her, and she's very thoughtful. I might say that this post was a little bit like on the end, and I'll bet she has a more nuanced thing in real life. But you can see how many comments that got, and so she's like, ah, let's just put this to bed. So thank you all for listening to me now and not just shutting this all down at this point. And IDEO here has a post called "The Case Against AI Generated Users." So I do want you to know, like, there's lots of controversy, lots of divergent opinions. And so I want you to get the full perspective and make your call. But I do want to say, actually, I would take issue with the IDEO post because I'm surprised they posted an IDEO, frankly. It was like a quick one-off study someone did and it didn't work out. And they're like, this stuff sucks, man. And both groups, I think, can be much more thoughtful in the way that I don't know. Erica is already, but I want to say it was an unusual play for IDEO. I think it was out of character. But I wanted you to know that if you were thinking of doing this in your organization, don't be surprised if you've got some, pushback. And that's okay. Let's do this thoughtfully and carefully. Um, and so how even would you use these kind of things, right? Like what's the benefit of this kind of thing? Why would I even try, right? And so I want to show you a couple of perspectives. This is one from how syntheticusers.com describes it. And I'm going to show you actually Board of Innovation's thoughts here too. Um, and so I wanted to say that so they've got a rough flow here at the top of, hey, you've got a business question, you recruit and schedule and field work and all this stuff. And boy, that's a lot of time. Maybe we could just do some things with synthetic users. Um, and so, I think what their concept is here is, and actually you can hear Kwame and his words actually, yeah, I'll call up the video and put it in the chat if you want to, or someone from the guild can just Google my YouTube channel and find the right link. But anyway, I think Kwame was quite thoughtful about this, and so was his partner, who lead synthetic users. And we're like, hey, this is like a new tool, a new thing to prepare us for users or anticipate what might come from users. So you can see they've still got these, well, I guess I might call humans, organic users, and so the idea was, let's anticipate, let's prepare, let's think of what might be to come, and test out some early concepts, and it doesn't cost very much, and it's not dangerous, and so on. Um, and it's a way to get started. And so here's sort of a parallel, and this is from the Board of Innovation. I always want to cite these things if it's not my idea. And they're thinking innovation, and they're thinking, gosh, double diamond is so, 5 minutes ago. What we have now is the Stingray model. And so, okay, I jest a little bit. They've been thoughtful about this, so I've got to give them full credit. But the idea is maybe what we can do is do a lot of iteration. That's what, when I heard that thing that made my jaw drop, they were doing these iterations of synthetic testing, right? And so the notion is, as you get deeper blue, you get to more human, based experiments. So maybe for them, they're doing, 90% synthetic first and quickly transitioning to something else. So I just wanted to say this is a different approach and a different possibility. Not necessarily saying either is the way to do it, but I wanted to show you how some of these things are being handled in public. And I wanted to say, how are we using synthetic users in our work? And so one of the things we do is even before we start any study, we're meeting with stakeholders, and they're like, yeah, I think I'd like to get you to ask this question or this business question of these participants. And we're like, great. Let's spin up, using Coco in this example, a synthetic user right now and ask that synthetic user that question. And that doesn't mean that we've got it all done, high fives are all done with our research, but typically the response there is, oh, actually, from the stakeholder, I wasn't quite thinking of that answer. I really wanted to get at this point. And also maybe that isn't really the right set of participants for us. Maybe we need someone like this. And so great. We just learned two things about what we should do with our real humans, and the synthetic user is just a tool to get us there. And so often we're doing things like trying to test our interview guide before we go live with it, just in case there's anything surprising or maybe something um, where we probably didn't ask the question as clearly as we could have, and we can identify that early. Even with like, would they identify as this kind of person, or how would the kind of person we want screen out by accident, stuff like that. Um, Also, it's actually interesting that a lot of our groups now that we work with want to have as a deliverable not just like a deck that can live in some SharePoint, but they want a synthetic user or set of users that they can keep talking to over time. So it's sort of bringing the data to life. So it's such a different thing. It's kind of scary to present someone with that, but we're doing that for a number of groups actually. Um, and so that's where, people want to go back and actually tap the data that we collected from real humans, but in the context of you asking questions of a synthetic user. So just such a different world, right? So I just wanted to acknowledge like we're using these things, and it seems to be valuable. And so let's keep going. So I guess just to give you a sense, and we'll get to really trying these things in a sec, but I just wanted to say that obviously, it's low cost. If you had a horrible interview question, you can fix it risk-free. If you have a crazy idea, you test, with a synthetic user and realize, oh yeah, now I think about it, a lot of people wouldn't like that for this reason, based on the past research I've done, that triggers that memory, so risk-free environment. Um, I just wanted to say there's this notion that I sort of self-coined this, but you can ask them sort of impossible questions. And the idea here is you can ask them like, of my interview guide, what are the questions that are the most embarrassing for you, or the ones you least wanted to answer, or what would you never tell someone in an interview, but I should know? So, well, can you tell me that in a jobs to be done format? So anyway, I guess my point is that there are really interesting kind of new ways you could approach this to get different angles that you might not from humans. Um, and so also I was going to say that my third point in the center column, when we've got a couple examples. I actually really liked, and I don't know if it's in Ellen's cohort, but there was someone who had extremely high net worth people that they were working with. And so our traditional notion is let's pay people to be participants. And so if they money's no object, how do we get them? And so it was really interesting. So for that person, and you probably all know an example of like a really hard to get cohort that you would want to test. And so this is a way to maybe represent what they know and maybe get an inkling of where things might land were you able to get enough people. And so there can be secure environments, there can be HIPAA problems, there could be any number of situations where maybe that's an interesting angle. Um, and also, actually, another person came up with something that I hadn't thought of, which was when you're trying, so like take synthetic users, if they want to, you want to hire them, likely there's like vendor management people and legal and all these different people who would have to say yes along the way. And the salespeople probably don't have access to all those people. Maybe actually generating equivalents of those people they can anticipate some of the things that someone might have as an objection and get ready for it. So you can just see there, we actually do synthetic users of our target, of our stakeholders, in order to say, if I present it this way, would that be compelling? In what way would it be more compelling? And just think of that possibility. So all these like interesting ways you can use these kind of things. And I just really encourage you to ask about rationale. And sometimes we build these things where it actually sort of is like, give me your answer, then give me the underlying thinking behind the answer, just to see what is there. And again, I guess I mentioned this and impossible questions. So I think we're well covered. Okay, cool. Um, Here, I think we've got some pretty good. Oh yeah, the last thing I wanted to mention was they don't have to be users. So a cool thing you can do too is there are a lot of people who are sort of user experience team of one, and it's really nice to maybe have another expert to quote unquote that can look at the same data set and you can see what that synthetic user is seeing in the same data. And so I give the example of I am not a like brand strategist, for example. That's not my specialty. So I'm curious to know what someone like that might think. I'm curious to see what a financial person might think from what we're getting, and so on. Um, So I just wanted to say that you can think of it from several perspectives. Someone to help you as a colleague, quote unquote, um, in addition to these representative audience members for whatever you're doing. Um, cool. Let me see here. Oh yeah, do you know what? I'm not going to show you that yet because I don't want the scroll of the meeting chat here for a moment. Let me just catch up a little bit. You all have been really prolific in writing things here. Let me just take a quick look. Um, yeah, and I'm sorry, one thing I didn't do is make it so I could share the questions. Maybe I'll tell you what I'll do. Let me get this out of presentation mode. And I'm just gonna do a quick, yeah, here, I'll tell you what. Okay, it's just a little on the fly thing, so bear with me here. Let's see how fast John can use Google Slides. Okay, what I want to do is just make sure you can see what I can see. Okay, so Rachel asked, is it possible to recruit a diverse set of synthetic users? Yeah, so you can, so for example, it might be appropriate. We work with like Mars, who does like pet food around the world. And so it might be appropriate to say, what does a person with this characteristics in New Zealand think about this versus someone in Sweden versus someone in Brazil? So there's no reason why you couldn't have different audience members that are represented and then see the different opinions. That's kind of what Board of Innovation sounds like they're really approaching this with. Um, yeah, and Scott, here's another, they're all good questions. Scott asked, what underpins these synthetic users? And yeah, we're just about to go there when we get to the ones that are not derived through just prompting. So I need to actually keep moving, so I'll make sure I get there. Um, yeah. So, okay. Yeah, Brad, another good question. Okay, from Brad. If you want to keep, uh, right, how might you prevent over-reliance on these things? I don't think I have an answer for you there. This is a really good question. And I think it's like so easy to do this that I might argue that it's going to be very likely that the most common source people turn to, like let's say you're a designer or you're a product owner and it's 3 in the morning. You might just go and crack open one of these synthetic users because it's really, really easy and get a first sense. So I think that's actually a really interesting question. Oh, cool. Raymond put in the link to my interview. Excellent. Um, yeah, so I think this is parallel. So just misuse or abuse. Yeah, totally fair. And you all are the I don't know. Sorry, I keep using the word cohort, but you're the set of people who will help to give us the principles on which we stand on to use these tools in general. So I want to inform you so you can help contribute to that question. Um, yeah, and Valentina, we're just about to get here of how are these things created? Let's go create some, and then I'll show you a couple ways. Um, yeah, and Anthony has a totally fair question too. So in general, these are so we do put ChatGPT in sort of the mindset of a synthetic user, so it does perform differently than just default. Um, but generally, that's a difference that comes between the groups that have a sort of professional custom tool for this versus just chatting, where you can basically associate all of the knowledge you have and sort of proprietary data on top of the model as well to influence it. So I think that's one of the pieces. Um, okay, cool. There's enough questions that I'm just not going to keep up. So I'll tell you what, I'm going to pause. I'm going to keep going, but when I get to questions, I'll make sure that we give you a chance here too. So here, I'll just hit undo a bunch of times so I don't mess up my slides. But thank you for these are all, there's so many good questions, and you're all right on about these things. Okay, let me see if I can do this right. Okay, cool. That works for me. So I just wanted to ask the question, is there a specific time when you might want to use these things? And so I'm just curious, so you can just bang away in the chat here, like, okay, so Sean, impossible questions. I think that's one of the really cool things too. Angela, so classic discovery, good. Okay. Yeah, Gav, 3 to 5. Okay. Julian. Okay. Okay, good. Okay, so I don't have too many ones here. It's okay to say one and say never, and it's fine because we can have a diversity of opinions. So totally cool. Okay, well, I'm glad you're open to considering the possibility. That's all I ask is that you study it and learn and decide what's best. Okay, so we had tons of questions. So let me actually just get us to the second thing we wanted to get to, because about half past. So I just want to make sure you too can prompt to get these things going. So here, let me do this. I'm going to go out of presentation mode for a moment, and I'm going to go grab this link. Okay, let's see if I can't add to the chat myself. Okay, good news. Okay, so let me just tell you what this is. This is, yeah, I just did a little Google Doc, and this, in theory, if my internet is working, and Google Docs is too, good, has just what I'm about to use actually. And I've got a couple things to try, so you can try them along with me. So, it's okay if you're dual tasking a little bit just to try it. So I've got a couple possibilities we're going to give a shot to. So cool. Let me go back to this. So I'll just sort of explain what I've tried to set up here. And then, oops, sorry, one sec. Mayday. There we go. Okay. There we are. So I just have to do this just the right way for it to get it to go not full screen. Presenter view. There we go. Beautiful. That's what we were thinking of. Okay. So I've got that in general in your prompting, I really want you to do a role and goal and then give it some context. And if there's any sort of other things that you constraints, give it that, and so on. So it's a really good that if you just follow that kind of flow, that's usually helpful. But so I want you to be a synthetic. So this thing is supposed to be a synthetic persona generator with the ability to create highly detailed, realistic personas. We can debate what a realistic persona is later, but I just wanted to say like this is a way to get us up and started. And I'm giving you this so you can edit it to be appropriate for you. But so become a synthetic user expert. And really, it's got a little flow it does here to get us to where we need to go. And at the end, it's got to assume this persona. Okay. So let's give this a shot. So I guess I've got that document up and I'm going to go for O4 Mini here. So I'm on ChatGPT. I have a like $20 account, or business account. And really, I think you can do this with any of them, but I do like to do it with the one thinking one so I can see a little bit of what it's thinking. Um, okay, so I'm just going to go grab this text. Cool. So it's always fun to do a live demo. We never know what's going to happen because they keep changing these models. Okay, so here's the first thing it does. It says, hey, what kind of, synthetic person we'd like to create. And so this is where you could have an expert that could work with you potentially and like analyze some data. So I'm just going to say a consumer for now because it's going to be easier to do. And consumer could be a B2B, it doesn't really matter. And so basically it's saying, tell me a little bit about this consumer. And so in this case, I want to have the topic of how we might use AI assistants in our personal lives, just as something we can all share and is public. And so I'm going to say, so this is it's a, I'll be a little centric for the moment, geocentric, adult, um, and so, there aren't really behaviors that I think are really crucial here, or some sort of like purchasing things. I just had examples there. You can put in whatever you want. So I think in this case, I'd say, um, okay, so I'm just I'm putting some stuff in here to keep us rolling. So don't, with clients, I spend a little more time on these things, but okay, the open to premium tool. Okay, yeah, oops, I can't spell relevant apparently. Uh, oh, my Canadian's coming out. I did please and used that much more energy. Okay. Um, okay, so it just came up with this persona, and let's see. So Jordan and lifelong learner, family first, tech optimist. Okay. They've got a ChatGPT Plus membership, family Netflix plan. Okay, that's fine. Is there anything I'd like to tweak? Okay, so definitely you can, the whole point here was to make this so you could kind of cycle through it and have it to the point where you like it. In this case, I'm going to keep on rolling because we're just kind of live sampling. But oh yeah. So Chelsea asked, is there a particular model I'd use? I actually encourage you to try almost all of them because they keep varying and keep getting updated. So there isn't really a constant this one for sure. We are constantly testing the Claude models and the Gemini models and the OpenAI models to just to keep up, and there are many more beyond that. But yeah, there you go. Um, let's see. Yeah, so could you have a custom GPT as Tizania mentioned? And so you could actually. I guess I tend to keep spinning up different ones all the time. So I think that's one reason I tend to do this a lot. Okay, is there anything I'd like to do before Jordan answers other questions? No, I'm going to say, oops, wrong place to type. Proceed. Okay, so now this is Jordan Miller. And actually here, I did have a little cheat sheet here. So I was like, what have you used this recently for? These were some of the stakeholder questions. What do you commonly use it for? How often? Okay, let's just bang away with this to get started. And we've used this. What I encourage you to do is go ahead and create something that's in the domain you know really well, and then ask it questions you know the answers of for real humans. And wow, so this person mentioned Google Bard. Okay, I wouldn't expect that particular answer. Um, but let's see, fact checking, grocery. Okay. Um, Okay. Okay, fair enough. Let me see here. I'm going to go back to this for a sec and say I'm going to ask about what would be the perfect AI assistant for them. And I think Ellen's on the call. She's seen what the answers are to this from, we actually recruit a number of humans to do this for us, and then we see what we get from synthetic users after that. Um, so I think this actually, let me tell you which things I think are sort of hit the mark and if there's anything that doesn't. So definitely people wanted to know background about me, like typical things that I might do or be proactive. So know that something's coming up that I'm going to mess up, that kind of thing. So just being that sort of helper. Um, we do hear a lot of sort of going between topics, and maybe it might be more like email and calendar and maybe texting, like I don't know, my partner says to go pick up X, on the way home, and so know that. Um, Catching up summaries of things is actually something that we do hear from real humans. Um, right. So I don't know. I don't know that I've heard this that much. I guess people would like that, but I haven't heard it explicitly from the humans. Um, but being adaptive, I think, too, and just knowing my preferences is another piece. So I guess my point here is that, okay, these are kind of interesting. So maybe we can go after, probing some of these with our real humans if we're interested. So let me just go and show you something real quick. I don't think I have Miro up, so just bear with me for ever so slightly. Um, okay, so I was going to give you this one. Okay, this is from one of our classes we do, but I'm just going to scoot way over. I just wanted to show you this one thing. So what we did is we took a look at the real human data from actually a question, just really this question, and we had sort of 7 things that came up. Like we wanted to be proactive. So this is the human data studied with AI, just to be clear. But so people wanted to be proactive. They wanted integration with other things like email and texts and so on. They wanted to be aware of me and just remember my preferences. They want it to just be easy and I could use my voice, I could type stuff. Um, let's see. Oh yeah, they wanted to be able to trust it and have like transparency. That was an important factor, obviously. Summarize stuff, make it give me that TLDR, and help me with like scheduling and stuff like that. Okay, so what we did is we said, okay, let's look at this human data. I think we had about, yeah, you can see there's 50 interviews we had in here. I think in the end there was 53 total, but that's okay. So this is just when we analyzed it with O4 Mini, and then we tested it with another tool called Coloop and Maven. They were coming up with similar things. So this is the human data we collected ourselves. Also, Listen Labs come up with something very similar. Okay, but I wanted to say that these are the two tools I'm going to show you today. And I don't have a financial stake in these things or anything like that. I'm just learning too. But I wanted to say that without giving it any of the data that we found ourselves independently, this came up with a lot of the things that we saw in the real human data. So I guess my point is, okay, this is close enough. I ought to start to take this idea, this concept seriously. And you can see there's some bullet points there with no numbers. And so those are things it came up with that we didn't find in the human data. But I just wanted to give you a sense that, there might be something interesting to these synthetic users. So you don't have to worry about the exact topics here. It's more how interesting that it got a fair number of the things that we actually discovered in real life. Um, Right. So I know that it's creepy. Yeah, I know. I'm not going to share this particular set of data. I don't think, I mean, I guess there's a screenshot you could take, but the point more was th this was just a representative example that we did in class, so not like a formal study. But I wanted to give you the sense of kind of that there may be something to this. And so here, I'm just going to show you that you can be a fair bit different too. So let's just do our prompt one more time here. Oh, good. Someone else is copying it. Excellent. These things wind up all sorts of fancy colors when we're doing this live, and there's so many people doing stuff together. Okay, so I'm going to get this going, and we're just going to have some fun for a second, and I'll get serious again just for a moment. Um, okay, we're going to do a consumer, and I want this consumer to be, yeah. Okay, so I know I'm sort of shortcutting things here, but I just wanted to show you that you can um, okay. Uh, okay. Okay, so I'm just getting a little update here from our friends at ChatGPT. Oh no, failed to edit. Oh wait, I think we came around. Okay, so okay, answer in chat instead. Okay, that's fine. Okay, so now we need to get to the more pressing issues than the ones we've had so far. So we want to know, and you can decide this too, if Supreme, Kith, or Bape are still fire or not. Okay, so let's figure this out. Oh, we've got a bullet point list. Wow, I wouldn't expect that from this, but still very much in the game, but its hype has matured for Supreme. Okay, I would guess that. Oh, Kith is still very much fire. It actually isn't quite as fun in the way it's talking as I thought it might be. There are other cases we've done this where it really went to town. Okay, here we go. Still valid, but less mystique. Okay. Kith is very much in demand in fire. Babe strong as ever. Okay. So here, let's just ask one more question to make sure we really understand. And actually, I could ask this more like I would normally, but I'm just having fun here for a moment. But I wanted to show you that you can think of it from a very different perspective. This is my point. Oh, there you go. Dead ass. I deck out my avatar with that Bape Shark hoodie. Actually, I know what the shark hoodie is. That's so funny. Those wild camel waves are straight up. Eye candy on the battlefield. Okay, there you go. Okay, ChatGPT has spoken. Um, there you go. Is it a shark? Right. What do you think? Right. Do I think shark hoodie energy or a sleek kith fit for the win? I think it's a shark hoodie energy all the way, personally. Um, Good. So anyway, I wanted to just give you a sense that you can think of things, and I actually asked it in, obviously vernacular too, but the point is that you can think of it from a hugely different perspective and you can get it to mimic what might be the nomenclature, the semantics, the syntactics that that person might have, even to just prepare for a real interview as well. Obviously I was just having a little fun there, but I wanted to give you a sense that you can think of it very differently. Okay, cool. Well, here, let me get us back. And I just want to say, right, so I think we mentioned common users and sort of hard to recruit people. So a couple of you said like 2 and 3, like initial exploration or concept testing. I think that's a great example of where you can get a first sense of where things might be headed. And it's not definitive, it's a first sense. And also, yeah, just make sure you're asking for a lot of details and asking those impossible questions. Um, and just in general, what we do is we get this initial exploration with our synthetic users. We get our real human data, and then we circle back and update our synthetic users based on that. And actually, every time we ask the updated ones, they actually have that sort of other piece in their brain as well. And so that's what I've got there for you. Um, Cool. Let me see here. Yeah, I'm just going to go to these specialized tools. Um, Let me just pause for a sec. I'll tell you what, I'm going to escape and if you bear with me with having a very colorful slide, let me just leave it like that and see if I got a couple. Okay, NP, let's see. Okay, how can this be used for surveys? Yeah, there actually are groups that offer synthetic survey responses for you. So you can get 8,000 synthetic user responses. I, I'm not completely convinced I know the value of that. I guess I'm more of a qual person, to be honest, just to show my biases, but um, it is possible. And so we have to take, like, I think that actually going back to Erica, taking a big step back on is this reasonable or not is a good question always to have. So I was struggling with what the best, why that would be a really powerful answer for me. Um, let's see. Okay. Oh, just a brief aside. This is with the Gen Z folks. All right, we didn't have enough sarcasm. Okay, fair point. I think that's a good call on that one. Um, let's see. Anything else I've got? Yeah, so I mean, I think we can debate the semantics here, but I think that you're right that is this some sort of hypothetical user or proto person? Logically, you could get very specific about an individual or have it be a little bit more middle of the road. And I think it's like I guess I think of it as a good first start. So I don't get too wrapped around the axle of like how specific should this be. I think of it as inspiration, maybe is the way I think of it, rather than so I wouldn't make major choices on this just yet. Um,
John, if I could just jump in for a second,
sure.
some of the themes that have emerged are kind of around like what are the protections against bias, over reliance,
Hmm.
inaccuracy. I'm seeing that a lot of talk about tools, which I think
Hmm.
we could talk for 4 days on that, right? Based on what I learned in your course.
Yeah.
And then just thinking about what are the limits of synthetic users rather than, right? And
Mhm.
how researchers can think about what those limits should be when deciding synthetic or, and or human.
Mhm. Yeah. Thank you for those really hard philosophical questions. Um, so I guess the first thing I'd say is, right, you all know that there can be plenty of biases in the underlying data what is being collected by these large language models. And actually, one of the reasons to think about using a specialized tool is that they can, be far more, I mean, I was about to use the word biased, but they can be far more influenced maybe, or you can weight the data to be more aligned with, for example, what we see in psychology studies, for example, or things where it's more neutrally collected. So actually, to your point about that concept, here, I just wanted to say, yeah, actually, let me just move forward to try and give you kind of what might be a reason to use some of the specialized tools rather than others. But I don't know that I can answer this completely for you. I think that this is why I try to say it rather than data. I'm saying that we've got an interesting parallel. We've got an interesting, inspiration. And so I think of it that way. And I think increasingly, as you use these with your specialized knowledge, you'll see the sort of limitations. I think it's a good first step when you're sort of exploratory, it's good. Um, I find that for extremely nuanced, like, let's just take purchasing decisions, for example, or problem solving. Sometimes it can get it right and sometimes not. And so that's where I'd say, okay, we're looking for these kind of things. Now let's go look for it in real life with real people. So I guess that's probably my best thing, is to be cautiously optimistic, but look for the real data ultimately to be the decider, that real human data. But just to also remember that these things are just literally the worst they've ever been. So what could this be like in a year, in 2 years, and so on? So might it actually be really interesting at that point? And so I want you kind of to be ready for the possibility that it could get much better, even if it's not there today. Cool. So I guess it's a sort of unsatisfying Washington, in Washington, it depends answer, but I would more say that it seems to be a really good way to get an inkling of the direction that you should go, and be an inspiration for expand, and also just there might be access you never have to these real edge cases, and give you a first sense of what those might be like and how you could ultimately be potentially more inclusive. So that's the way I think of it.
And John, if
So
having taken your course, right,
please.
this doesn't replace the general things that every researcher has to do anyway, right? AI is just a means to maybe help with some of those things that have been adding to the UX research takes too long, right? And thinking about how you can help speed up those processes. So the things that UX researchers need to do, and I don't know if you can see my shirt, but I wore it
Right,
just
it's
for you.
nice.
It's the It Depends shirt. So, and so I just wanted to make that came so clear in my discussions with you in the past, and I just wanted to share it again.
Yeah, that's fair. And so, like, for example, with our work, we do very little of the recruiting right now, and we do so much of our time is on synthesis and strategy and, you know, conveying things thoughtfully to stakeholders to make an impact and so on. So I think that, yeah, you can think of it that way, that it might, how can we shortcut some of the more mundane things, is maybe a good way to think of it. So let me just give you a sense. A number of you were saying, like, well, what is underlying these things really? And the answer is that I don't think anyone has a fully open source version of anything. So your question is a good one and will remain unanswered by the end of this talk. But I want to say generally, so these are the professional versions. So this group here is constantly interviewing folks from around the world, with all sorts of questions that get at their behavior, their interests, and they tend to lean more consumer packaged goods, like, consumer side of the world, but have a lot of information on B2B as well. But you can see they're trying to get to personality traits and psychographics and all these different facets we might have. Um, and so again, I can tell you what they share publicly, but it may leave you unsatisfied for getting deep, deep, deep to what does it really mean. I can tell you what they're trying to accomplish. And so again, I'm not sort of, I just want to represent an example here so you get a sense of what they're saying, and I'll let you make calls from there. But they're trying to make sure that you can create the kinds of personas you'd like, or they call them agents in this case. They do try to have lots of facets. So they have like millions of facets that they try to represent. Um, and really just try to keep it updated as they are constantly interviewing people and constantly bringing in more data. So they're trying to say that you can get different things from different people, and that it actually does match fairly well with what they find from real humans, and that the traits are reasonably aligned. Again, I don't think I have those studies publicly, but I just wanted to say this is sort of their goal, and it's probably a reasonable one. And so just to sort of parallel, this is synthetic users. And what they did is, so this is run by clinical psychologists, just to give you a sense. So not surprisingly, they pulled in all these public behavior studies to help as a way to, tune underlyingly how people might think, and help to tune their models in a way that's different than just using a GPT itself. Um, and so that there's sort of two pieces to this. One is that they've got the sort of general model. The other is that you can add this retrieval augmented generation, RAG. You can have your data in here as well. So if you're Pepsi, you would have a lot of behavioral data that you might bring in as well. So that's the concept. And I know that you'd love to get more data. Um, these are a couple, so you'll get, I think you have access to the slides now, and that document. The document had linked to the slides, and the slides have linked to the document. So these are some of the source things that folks mentioned that I thought might be relevant and you might be interested in. So if you want to dive deep, I've got an opportunity for you. And so there you go. And I'm going to kind of leave it to that's for the future for us to talk about. And yeah, I just wanted to say this to sort of bring in your own data is the big addition here. And more control over things like temperature. So I'll just show you a couple examples of how these kind of things work, and they've got very different approaches. And so um, let me show you. This is our sort of class instance of this tool called Vurvey. And if I go to agents, I just want to say that they specifically have it designed so that you can have either these sort of experts. So we've got the insights expert, we've got a marketing expert, and so on. And then also you can have consumer personas. And so not surprisingly, with our class, they have created all kinds of individual personas here all over the place. So if you need dad jokes, you go to Dan the Dad. If you need the mom that travels internationally, that's Fiona, and so on. So we have all these different personas that have been created. I created Jordan myself as a consumer persona. So let me just show you kind of what's under the hood here so you get a feeling for it. And just rough feeling, really. So it gives you a name and description. The description is really for us humans. The background is sort of the brains behind the operation. So we have, in this case, I've got sort of like a lot of cognitive, I'm a cognitive psychologist. So I try to have like mental models and motivations and behaviors and what they use AI for, because this was a study about how they use AI. And so there's that. But in addition, you say, how will the person respond to you? So this is how you get the like hardcore Gen Z person to talk Gen Z or Gen Alpha. Also, you can have the underlying model and change it and see how that performs. I actually found that Claude was the best for this one. And you can have it, so this is the temperature of the model, so how essentially creative it is. This says more concise to more creative, but I might be like more consistent to more creative as a way to think of this. And then underlyingly, you can see is their people model that they subscribe to. And again, you're like, what's in the people model? I'm sorry, I can't tell you, apart from what I just showed you a couple screens of. And so you can start to ask your questions of your agent here, and they call their synthetic users agents. And so here, let me just go back for a moment to the start here. And so what I can do is I can pick my particular agent. Okay, so Dan is just handy, so I'm going to grab Dan. And then I can say sources. So this is different than using ChatGPT, right? Where I can say, actually here, let's see if I can find Fiona here. Yeah, here, so I can search this way. Beautiful. Okay, So we made this person based on real data that we collected. And then we've got some interviews we did in addition to that here on this Vurvey platform. So now what I can do is I can bring these together and ask Fiona questions, but have her be influenced by the real human data. And so that's the thing, how exactly you should do this, what's the right way to do this, we're all learning. I don't think I really have an answer, but I want to show you that this kind of thing is possible. And really, so in this case, I'm sort of chatting with this person. In the case of synthetic users, I can just tell you briefly that, and I know I need to respect your time, but you basically ask them a set of questions. So if I go here, it builds a set of interviews with, in this case, 10 participants, and it's created these 10 different synthetic personas, and then it writes a report on what it found with that. And you can ask questions of that whole report, of that whole study, if you choose to. So these are a couple of the approaches to this kind of work. And it's just so early days. And is there a right way? I don't think we have that yet. But interesting things you can do with these kind of tools now. So cool. I guess I wanted to give you that flavor. And yeah, please do connect with me. And I wouldn't be upset if you took my class, but yeah, just check out some of the tools. So all of those interviews with the tool founders, they actually have demos of the tools as well. So you can get a sense of what they're like. So I do encourage you to try to check them out that way. If they don't have like a free trial and stuff, that's one way to take a look at them. But yeah, I think that's where I can stay a few minutes over, but I just wanted to say thank you so much for sticking with me. We've got like 100 people still on the call, so that's wonderful. That suggests that you all are curious, and I just want you to keep learning, try these things, understand their power today, think about what it might be like 2 years from now, and get yourself sort of future thinking in that way. And I don't purport that this is the way to do it. I think we're all figuring that out, and I hope collectively the 101 people on the call can help to frame that in a way that's appropriate and thinking about ethics and avoiding bias and all of these pitfalls. And we can do better than we might have in the past with these new tools. So cool. I know there's still questions. Those of you that had to go, I'm sorry we didn't get more conversation. Obviously, Ellen's right. We can have a 4-day conversation. We'll have a marathon one day, but it'd be like a Indian cricket match. But test match, yeah. But anyway, thank you all so much. And I really, really appreciate your time and thinking.